What's your opinion on A's fans? Do you feel sorry for them? Do you feel frustrated for them? Do you feel like inspired by them, that they're doing what they can? What's your take on them?
Yeah, I feel all of those emotions. That's why it hits. So I feel sorry for them because you're losing your team. And for some people, we know sports is an escape or it's a massive part of their daily life, especially attending the games. And you're not going to be able to do that. Feel really bad for the younger generation because there are kids that don't even realize that they're not going to have a team right around the corner. And it was, in my mind, one of the iconic franchises in baseball. And then definite frustration. The frustration deals with how it's been handled, right? And when we talk about this, it's the team, it's the league. There's just wrong decision after wrong decision, weird transparency. It just has not been handled well. And also, I feel like they're talking out of both ends. I'm talking about the league when you're talking about growing the game and having a diverse audience. It's just like a lot of what they describe to me means, yeah, you should have baseball in this area with this fan base too that clearly is there. But if you kick a fan base enough, they're not going to show up on a consistent basis. So what you've done, not you personally, but what you've done to the fan base is you've actually galvanized them to be able to show you they are here in droves. They're not letting the story go away. They're active on social media. They're active when they want to rally together, which we all know is not easy to do. To pull off that game, that was game of the year last year, right?
Reverse boycott.
Reverse protest game. Yeah, of course, the reverse boycott. That was the game of the year. Like I had the chills watching that game. For the regular season, no doubt about it, that was the game of the year. It picked up a ton of attention on a national stage, even for fans of other sports, because everyone can resonate with what's going on. It's kind of like a movie, right? Where we're witnessing this like live. I mean, often the scripts in real life are crazier than movies. So that's where I feel the passion. I also feel the love back. Sometimes I praise some situations, Brody, and then we will call stuff out, right, on our show. And sometimes you have like fans or fan bases that will kind of go against you or feel like, well, this is our team. You can't say that. But this fan base, to me, I'm generalizing, has felt like very open and accepting and saying, hey, we like that you're talking about it. You know, you're not living it every single day, but you understand where we're coming from, right, and you're keeping it in the national, stratosphere of baseball talk. So I appreciate what has been given to me from A's fans too during this learning experience.
Well, not everybody pays attention to it on a regular basis or enough to talk knowledgeably about it. And I think that's what they appreciate from you and anybody else who's doing it on the national level with that type of platform. So I think it's interesting because we both agree that Major League Baseball could work in Las Vegas. Let's be very clear about this. I get so many comments here on the channel. You hate Las Vegas. You're against us. It's not that. It's just that under these circumstances, I don't think that it's a sure thing like you think it is. So my question to you is kind of twofold here. What makes you think that baseball can work in Las Vegas? What also makes you think that the A's are not the right fit there?
So I think baseball can work in Las Vegas because hockey works in Las Vegas. Like, let's keep it that simple, right? Yeah. I don't know if anyone expected the Vegas Knights to be this much of a success, but if I'm starting a baseball team in Las Vegas, I am sitting down with them and shadowing them, and I'm going to be a sponge and be best friends with everyone in that organization because they're doing it right or at least on the outside for me, and I'm paying less attention to hockey in the past year or two, but I used to work for NHL Network as well.
Right.
They're doing a bang up job right from the jump. But I think that had to do with being a fresh product, a brand that belongs to Vegas, and an approach that's unique to Vegas and really understanding the community. I have 0% faith that any of that will be orchestrated with what's coming over from Oakland to Las Vegas. And the easiest way to start is a topic that we covered when you were on with me, is that this should be called the Las Vegas blank. It should pick a name, a new name. The brand of the Oakland A's should stay in Oakland. And I'm not just talking about that for the Oakland side. I think if you polled Vegas fans, baseball fans, right, what do they want their team and their branding to look like? They don't want the leftovers and what's in my mind been, kind of a tarnished brand now over the past year that's coming over there. The Vegas fans are not caring about the history in the same way. And for them, they're looking at national headlines on a regular basis and being like, oh, that smells what's going on there. And we're getting that. It's very easy to trick the brain psychologically, right? So one of our guests recently said, don't remember who it was, but the Washington Nationals, like, were they the Washington Expos or the Washington Nationals?
Right.
And how would you look at them if they were the Washington Expos? Because Montreal was going through some crap too, right? And you would always kind of have that in your brain, and it wouldn't feel the same, even though it's just a name, it's just a logo, it's just some colors on a uniform. It matters. That's branding. That's why massive companies spend millions, if not billions of dollars for what's called marketing. So they're already whiffing there, which gives me 0% belief that they are going to do anything right, because almost everything's been done wrong. And I can't believe there's not at least someone in their ear that's saying, hey, maybe you should just let Oakland keep the A's and we can work on something else, because we need to kind of freshen up what you're bringing there, because it's been pretty ugly PR-wise. Would anybody give the PR situation of what's gone on here more than an F? You can't.
It's one of those help me, help you situations. Listen to me on this. Trust me. Change the name.
Yes. We're asking players too, Brody, right? So that's where I can bring it to foul territory is no one else is going to ask that on a regular national show with players. Like, hey, like in a random month when the story's already kind of passed for a little, like, hey, what do you think of the A's? Like, should they be called the A's, right? You bring on someone like Paul Sewald who lives in Vegas and he's like, do not do that. That would be a travesty. Like, he's still in the league. He could play on the Vegas A's one day, and he's even giving advice. But they're not listening, you know?
So, I mean, you and I we're not marketing people by trade, although I think we've got some pretty good ideas there. We're not a lot of things, but the one thing I think both of us understand is baseball, how teams work, how they're put together, what it takes to become a winning team. And if the A's are really trying to be good, not just in 2028, hypothetically, when they want to open up in Las Vegas, but they need to be good in 26 and 7 to get that, attention, that hype. So when do you start getting good? Because we're here in 2024, one free agent signed, like a $43 million projected payroll. They've got some players on the up and up, the Ruizes, the Geloffs, JP Sears and company. But like, what's the process here of them actually getting good? Because I don't see that happening right now. And it feels like that really does need to happen if you want to do this, to your point, the right way.
And also, if you just do really basic math and look at TV contracts and how much money the owners made on the BAM deal, which was a tech deal that you can read about if you Google it. Like, there's not a shortage of short-term money for any franchise, right? Especially one that's only spending about $40 million on player payroll. Like, there is profit coming out of that. Not to mention teams also share money. So there is an ability for them to spend. So obviously the answer was yesterday, right? The answer has been the last couple of years when they've been in tank mode. Because here's one other underrated part of tanking. Signing short-term players. I'm not saying to sign a dude for 8 years, but signing players on one-year contracts that you can then flip at the trade deadline. Let's look at a team that has struggled for a while recently, but they won a World Series not too long ago. The Kansas City Royals signed Aroldis Chapman last offseason. That turned into Cole Reagans. He is there. He has stuff that is number 1 to number 3 stuff, right? Like, I think his floor, if he's healthy, is like a 3, because he went over to KC. They made some tweaks that clicked. I mean, in the second half of the season, he pitched like a 1. That wasn't a player they drafted. That was a player they traded for because of the signings that they made.
And the flip.
You can't tell me that, right, and then you flip them. You can't tell me that they can't spend $20-ish million in an offseason to pick up 2-3 of those types of players to be able to flip them at the deadline. Like, that is wild, and that's not seeing ahead, because you're right. If you don't have a good product that's coming to Vegas, like the Knights were able to turn around really quickly and turn into a contender, again, you're going to be in trouble. I think you're going to have to understand that Vegas will be a town, actually kind of like Miami, in that if you are selling an insane product with superstars and title contention, right, you might be able to get people to really grip what's going on there and it become an entertainment experience. If not, there's 8,000 other things to do, and they won't come.
I just think you can't flip a switch. Like, you can't say, oh, it's 2026. Here's our good team. Like, it's just not possible. And so, I'm surprised it's not happening already. And I'm
worried about the finances, though, Brody. That's the problem. I'm worried that because this is going on now, because I know there's a lot that goes into building a ballpark and getting the funding for it. I don't have a lot of confidence that that's going to just suddenly flip around like you're saying. Yeah. So not only the problem is this becomes a baseball problem. It is already, but it continues to become a baseball problem because Vegas does deserve a franchise. They deserve technically an expansion franchise, right? So if they're getting a team that's coming over there and they're making wrong decisions, and now we're worried about their finances and if they're ever going to spend, well, it could look like a failure, Vegas, for Major League Baseball. And that's for MLB. And then that hurts the product, that hurts the brand, that hurts the business, because then people are like, well, maybe baseball's not that popular. They can't just step into a city that has hockey and thrive and can't thrive with baseball. But the reason for that doesn't have to do with how much attraction baseball might have in Vegas. Tampa's the other good example. The Lightning are here, the Rays are here. I would say the Lightning are much more of a success story. The Rays aren't a failure, but the playoffs and the emptiness there, and I know they need a new ballpark. They're working on fixing that, but they are severely behind the Lightning in the way that they're operating, right? The Lightning they take over there. And let me tell you, I live in Florida. This is not a hockey state, but they have created something special. So they are winning on that front. And MLB needs to step in more and make sure that's happening, because that's for everyone. I know no owners want to say anything about this situation, but they need to be more vocal about it, because I care about the sport and they're hurting the sport.
I like a lot of players on this A's team right now. The young guys, like I said, the Geloffs, the Ruizes, the Langoliers, the Lawrence Butlers. I also really like their manager, Mark Kotze, and I think David Forst, with very limited resources, is always one of the best GMs, and he's been around 20-plus years. He knows what he's doing. But at the same point, I don't see how this team doesn't lose another 100 games this year. I mean, this would be 3 years in a row. I don't see how they get away from it. They lost 112 last year.
I can't see a scenario where they don't lose at least 100 games, right? Like a 10-game improvement is
still 102. Yeah.
It's still 102, right?
Right.
Yeah, I also really like, by the way, just one name, and I don't know what's going to happen with him if he's going to be a reliever now long term, but Mason Miller's stuff is
he's got
insane.
Yes.
But I don't really know. I haven't tracked like what the latest conversations are with him, and I know they got to keep him on the field.
They said for sure that he's going to be in the bullpen. I'm thinking closer with that type of stuff, and the A's don't really have a for sure Trevor May's retirement. I don't know who's going to close games, but I have to think he's a front runner there. And David Forst was saying they just need to keep him healthy for one full season. Let's start with that, and if it's in the bullpen, that's how he'll do it. So it seems like you're right. That's probably for him next year, him included. Totally like him, but I still don't think he alone makes that difference of 99 versus 100 losses. You know,
no, there's a book at 100 loss team. I mean, I'd have to look at the the BetMGM line to see like what they have them pegged at. My guess is like, maybe they put him at like a 107.5 kind of situation, because any team can get hot for a couple weeks, but also now expand that. I mean, if you're in the AL Central, which has been the worst division in baseball the last few years, you're in a much better situation where you can turn things around quicker. You don't have to go through as much of a rebuild to be able to be competitive again. That's not the case in the AL West, right? Yeah. We know that. It's a pretty strong division. I mean, you're looking at an Astros team that's dominant on a regular basis.
World Series champs in the Rangers.
World Series champs in the Rangers. I've been really critical of the Mariners offseason just because they haven't upped their payroll, and they were tanking for a while to get to this point. But still, I mean, they're worlds ahead of where Oakland's at. And so it's Oakland and the lowly Angels who at least we know are going to, even if they cut payroll, they're going to put their payroll at a point that puts them in a potential contention situation. And their rebuild will be quicker, than Oakland's will be.
Well, and they'll always still have Mike Trout, at least for right now. The only good thing that happened to the AL West is that Ohtani's gone. I mean, in a sense of other teams and how they view it. So
you're right. The West division's a pain. Yeah. That's got three teams at the top that are playoff contenders easy, right? Yep. So I mean, it doesn't matter this year, but I'm just saying long term. It's not like you look at those teams and you're like, man, those teams, none of them spend. They're not run well. Like, no, they're run super well. If anything, like you said with Texas, man, Chris Young's going to be there, I think, for a long time. Yeah. They are going to be a pain to deal with for a while. Like the two teams in Texas alone are run really well.